It must be a game this week. Must be week 1.
You guys obviously know the Chargers well. They got a new coach. What do you look for when you look at a Jim Harbaugh coach team?
Well-coached team, physical, get after it. Everywhere he goes, he wins. Ultimate respect for Harbaugh and what he's done in the past, both in collegiate and professional.
Well, how much does it change the preparation process? Obviously, you know what Harbaugh's done in the past, doing it in college, but there's a new staff, new people in there. How much does it change that preparation process for you guys?
I think it's just a little difficult this time because we haven't seen anything on film. In the preseason, he didn't play any of his starters. A lot of guys didn't show up on tape. So you got to go back in the archives, right? You got a little bit of Michigan. You got maybe some Baltimore, some Niners stuff you can look at. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to make some adjustments in the game, and that's what we're prepared to do.
An update on Brock Bowers, if he's going to be at practice.
Yeah, he'll be at practice, ready to go. We're good to go. Be at practice, ready to go.
You mentioned having to make adjustments. Coach knows almost double-digit games now as a head coach. What have you learned the most about that process, about what it takes to pull out those adjustments in game?
Yeah, just you got to be prepared. You got to think ahead. I mean, there's a lot of things that's going to come up in this game, either through personnel, scheme, a player that, what's his role, and then you find out at halftime. And that's what we really spent the last 2 weeks on. Even before this upcoming week, going into the Niners week, we're already, kind of dialed in on the Chargers. I think for all of us as a staff, and myself included, just to keep pounding away on film and go back as far as we can. And you don't want to chase ghosts, right? You want to go back and look at the 2011 season with Harbaugh, but maybe you do, and those two gentlemen been around each other, him and Greg Roman. So with any little tidbits we can do, we got a pretty good staff upstairs that does a great job of breaking down film. And then listen, at the end of the day, you got to make the adjustments, and the players got to be able to adapt to it.
Did you guys make any team captain? Did you guys select team captains yet?
Yeah, we'll probably do that later on this weekend.
Is there a difference for you personally being a permanent coach in your first game this weekend versus the games you coached last year as an interim?
No, I'm approaching the exact same way, to be honest. I mean, when I got the interim, I wasn't trying to give it up. So in my head, I was permanent. I knew what the tag said. So, no different in my approach. I do have more time to prepare, though, obviously. When that happened last year, I was in a 72, 96-hour window to get ready for a game. This has been a lot different, preparing, going through a whole calendar year, going through the offseason, going through training camp, just the process with Telesco as well with our roster, and really more importantly, our coordinators, right? Just coming up like, what do we want to be? What's our identity? What's our DNA? What do we want to look like and sound like when you guys watch us play on Sundays?
Coach, you talked about the respect you have for Coach Harbaugh, and you guys were both linked to this job during the offseason. Do you internalize that different from a coach's perspective now, where maybe as a player that'd be bulletin board material, further motivate you as a player, and it's different now as a coach? Or
no, ultimate respect. If it's between me and Harbaugh, that's not a bad thing. AP standing here, though.
You mentioned Brock will be back at practice. You're expected to be ready to go for Sunday?
Yeah, ready to go.
You talked about your career could have taken a much different trajectory. You thought about media at one point. What ultimately led to your decision in coaching? And also, you interned at Howard Stern many years ago. What do you remember about that?
Howard Stern? I don't think we can say it in this room. We gotta have a happy hour. No, listen. The Howard Stern deal was great. I was doing a weekly show with NFL Radio on Sirius Radio throughout the season when I played for the Giants, and after we won the Super Bowl, just talked to them about media stuff and said, I'll intern. So I did Jamie Foxx and some other ones, and then they said, what about Howard Stern? I'm like, wow, that's different. That's a different fan base, and it was cool because the first day was really behind the scenes, kind of just to get to know how everything works via radio and how Howard Stern operates in his production meetings. And then, when it got, behind the camera, it was special. But he's a dynamic individual, very sharp, very calculated in how he does things. Learned a lot from him. Kind of got me the urge to get into media. And why I got into media and why I stopped. I mean, I played in New York City, had a lot of cameras and mics in front of my face. Played with Tiki Barber and Strahan, who got into media right away as well, good friends of mine. And, when I had an injury with my neck, and couldn't play no more, had a lot of opportunities. So jumped in that. And putting on makeup and looking at a camera for 8 years was pretty cool in the AC unit, but I miss being in the locker room, miss competing, missing that fire burning in my stomach, that competitive drive, and got an opportunity to coach at the high school at Long Beach Poly, and the rest is history. Then I had opportunities to go to the league several times and just wasn't ready because I had other things going on business-wise, and when the opportunity came, I went full force.
Coach, as you look at the 2 starts that you've had, interim against the Giants, now coming back to LA with the Chargers, Is that giving you any other kind of special meaning for you, being that you're facing like kind of a home crowd, home team in LA, and that the first one is Interim's Giants?
No, it is cool going back home. It is cool going back home, but it's not about Antonio Pierce. It's about the Raiders. You know, we're trying to get our first divisional win against a really good opponent who's going to be hella motivated, well coached, physical, tough. I mean, we got to bring our hard hats, you know. So this is really not about me going back home. I get to go back home whenever I want to in the off season. So this is a business trip, and that's how we're approaching it.
Another update, Jackson Powers Johnson, is there a possibility that he can play on Sunday, or?
I mean, he's ready to go. He's practicing. I mean, we'll all see how that works out.
In the past, you've talked about your kind of welcome to the NFL moment. Do you remember your first week one as an NFL player? Just kind of like what's going through your mind, and specifically like how that kind of relates to your players this week now?
Yeah, I mean, on the punt team, Tim DeWhite ran back the punt return. I thought I was going to get fired on the spot with Marty Schottenheimer. So that was my welcome to the NFL moment, even though it wasn't my fault. I'm out there with the other 10 gentlemen, but that was a little scary moment. But I think for all these gentlemen, especially our rookies and some of our young players, man, I think the cool thing about our team and our group is how they've rallied around one another and kind of set the expectations of what to expect, but you don't know what it's like to expect. Week one, I always say week one, the opening week of the playoffs and Super Bowl, those are a lot of different speeds of football. And it really shows up for some of the younger guys. And hopefully we prep them the way we prepare and practice. And I think they got some really good reps in the preseason. So now they just know be amped up a little bit, and the guy across from you is the real deal.
You talk about getting those good reps in the preseason. You know, how excited are you to really see that starting defensive unit really come together in week one?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think you look at the preseason and everybody's going to look at, some negatives and things that happened. But I think more importantly, it was a great opportunity for us to gel and get those things out the way early and make those adjustments. Hey, listen, what you think you were doing in practice, that's not working. You need to do it this way. Or did you understand what we're asking you to do here with technique-wise or the fundamental or what the scheme was asking you to do? So when you can put that on film, that gives us a great opportunity to teach off of that. But I am excited. It's a very motivated group in that room with Patrick Graham. It's an outstanding job. Of just now we're starting to turn that heat up a little bit, right? Now the pot's starting to boil a little bit, starting to simmer a little bit for these guys. And I trust our defensive staff to make sure we're ready to play on Sunday.
Tony, you guys place a lot of emphasis on starting the season fast.
Yes.
From your experience, what does it take to pull that off?
Start the season fast. Can't beat yourself first and foremost, especially on the road, right? If I could start there. We're on the road, can't beat ourselves. We got to handle adversity. We talked about adjustments. That's going to come up as well. Got to be penalty-free there as well. Can't turn the ball over and good third down and red zone defense. All the things that we talked about and we worked on in this offseason and what we started with. But more importantly, man, it's less is more. I've probably said that before to you gentlemen. Sometimes when you're calling the game as a coordinator or as a head coach, you want to throw everything out there in week one. And let's be realistic. You're still like in that training camp preseason mode now, right? Because a lot of stuff, not a lot of reps are there. So allow your players to play fast. Don't sit there and make it a thinking game. These gentlemen are physically of the 1% of the world. Don't allow it to slow down mentally for them because you got all these great schemes and ideas. So allow the players to play fast. That's going to be the key for us.
Tom Telesco said that this is a completely different team than last year. In what ways would you say that they're different?
The roster, the mentality, how we're starting, the expectations. We expect to win.
What have you seen in Gardner since you named him the starting quarterback 3 weeks ago?
More vocal. I think when you're battling at a quarterback position, you got two guys there. They were splitting time. Who was talking? Who's leading the pack? And listen, it's Gardner's show. He's running the show.
On the other side of the ball, can you just talk about Christian Wilkins and what he's really added to that defensive line and what you think he'll add to the whole defense in general?
Yeah, man, listen, it's Max Crosby inside. I mean, Max shows up at 6, Christian's here at 6. Max leaves at 5, he's here at 5. You watch him practice, I mean, it's a thing of beauty when you have two of your best players that work as hard as anybody on the team. But more importantly, he's a perfectionist. I mean, he wants to prove, and we all do that when you get paid, and even myself, you get in this position, I want to prove I deserve to get this job. Well, he's already done that, and that's why he's here. But he wants to be the best. He's striving to be the best, no different than a lot of our players on the team. But what I love about him is the teammate. He's a great teammate. He's a good person, man. You see him bring over a lot of these young defensive tackles and work with them on the side. Not selfish at all. He wants to win.
In your experiences, what's the advantages or disadvantages from calling a game from the booth? And is there any conversations of having Luke Getz upstairs or downstairs?
That's a good question. I mean, Patrick Graham's career started on the field. And last year, he made the change. And I think it was beneficial to all of us. Last year when I took over, Bo called the game downstairs, and we moved him upstairs, and that was beneficial. So Luke is used to calling it downstairs, and I'm not going to change that until we need to.
You guys showed last year, last 4 games of the season with Zamir, a stout running game. How important is that for that to kind of carry over day one against the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in the season, everybody wants to establish the run and stop the run. But I think for Zamir and our offensive line, it'd be good just to establish what we want it to look like. Coming off the rock, the wide zone, hitting the edge, hitting it downhill. Zamir came back more physical, more explosive, bigger, stronger, faster. Didn't get a lot of touches in the preseason. It's just how it worked out because of the quarterback deal, but he'll have plenty of opportunities going forward.
Antonio, this is more an NFL question. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on the league having a game in Brazil, second game of the year, and also the emphasis more on streaming the product to fans.
Yeah, I think the Brazil game's pretty cool. I wish we were in Brazil right now. Our guys do too, but I played in the first game internationally with the Giants. We played in London. I thought that was a good experience. It's different. It was really different, but it's cool to see where the NFL wants to go, right? We boom, America done, number one sport. But to get that international, you got to go outside of our boundaries and get that fan base going. I'm looking forward to watching those two teams play. And I think streaming is no different than what to answer your question, just streaming. Just look at what we got here in this room. There's only 3 cameras in the back. Everybody else has a phone. That's just where it's going now.
Coach, kickoff returns went from 82% to 74 to 57% by week 3 of the preseason. Do you expect that kind of trend to continue? Do you think teams are going to start kind of kicking it out of the end zone? And I guess, what do you expect to see from the Chargers, knowing you guys have a dangerous return game as well?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be based off. Each team's going to be different, though. Each team is going to be different. If you got good returners, you might not want to kick it to those guys, right? Just go ahead and spot the ball at the 30 and go play football. I think it's going to change each and every week. We'll approach it differently based off our opponent. But for us, we do like our returners, and we love to bring that ball out.
That's good.
Okay. Thank you, guys.